we're going to quickly look at page setup. Now, the best way to look at this is simply to start a brand new document. So I'll come up here and I'll choose New Document. Well, the Create a New Document dialog comes up, and of course all the parameters we can see here will affect the size of our page. As you can see, I can change from my default to an alternate page size if I want. I can manually type in a size. I can choose my primary color mode. Just quickly on that, if you're sending your design to a professional printer, you will most likely want to work in CMYK mode. And usually your local inkjet printer does a fairly good job of CMYK as well. If you know you need an RGB output, which will be something like a wide format printer, or you might have a specific printer that simply works better with RGB, you would choose the RGB color mode. But for most things you'll work with, CMYK will be what you choose. The rendering resolution will affect things like drop shadows and things that Corel makes for you on the fly when you begin to work with effects. It'll work with this resolution of 300 dpi. Anyway, I'll simply click OK to that, create our new document, and what I want you to see is that when you have no objects selected, so I may have some text and some squares and all sorts of things on here, if I don't have any of those selected, the standard property bar generally displays all of the information or parameters about our page setup. Again, there's our page size. We could choose an alternate page size, manually type in a size, go from portrait to landscape if we want to, and so on. This next one is quite interesting. We've got all pages versus current page. What this means is, if I go and I click the plus to create a new page, the new page will be identical as the page that I'm working on. Or if you like, I'll say that another way. If I make a change here, say I type in, say 250 wide, you'll notice that every page is 250 wide. However, if I choose this button, current, and then I make this say 300 wide, what happens is only the page I'm working on has been affected. Can you see that? So that allows you to change the page you're working on without affecting everything else. Now, that's pretty important to remember. Well, I'm just quickly going to delete this page and delete this page. Let's just go back to our standard A4 size. Moving along, you can change the units you want to work in on your page right down to working in miles, or if you like, kilometers. Maybe a town planner might use such large measurements. I will discuss with you the other parameters in some future lessons. Now, to delve down a little deeper, if we want to actually change some more parameters about our page, we can come up to Layout and go to Page Setup. Or, what's easier, because it's always more than one way, is double-click the drop shadow around the edge of the page. So double-click, and as you can see, that brings up my options starting with page size. So we've fairly much got all of the same parameters we've got across the top, plus a few others. This one's interesting. Add a page frame. So if I click, and I click OK, can you see that? Automatically, I've got a rectangle that's the identical size of my page, and that can be quite handy. I'll just delete that. Double click again. Moving down, we can change our rendering resolution. We can also insert a bleed area. So if I require, say, a 5mm bleed area, turn that on, click OK, see the dotted line around the outside. We'll talk more about the bleed area down the track, but for right now, for those of you who know what that means, that's very, very handy. So I'll just turn that off. Okay, let's move down to the next one, Layout. And under Layout, you can choose from some varying options, a full page, a book, as you can see, tent card, and so on. But for right now, I'm going to just stay with full page, and I want to demonstrate facing pages. If you were going to create a magazine or a multi-page brochure, this would be a great way to do it. Start on the right or the left side. I'll start with the right, and I'll show you why. Click OK. Now notice the page starts, see the 0 there? It starts on the right side of the center of my working area. Now if I add a page, you'll notice the page comes to the left of center. Add another page, and now can you see what's going on? Now if I add another page, see, left and then right. So what's happening? Let's go back to the beginning. So there's page 1. Now we turn the page over, go to page 2, page 3, If I go to page 4, the page has been turned over and I'm seeing 4 and 5 and so on. So that's a great way to do a magazine style or multi-page brochure layout. So I'll just turn off facing pages. Under labels, that's a subject we're going to cover later on, so I won't talk about that now. Under background, however, this is a great place to create a permanent background for your design, whatever it is you might be doing. For example, if I click browse here, I could go and find a particular photograph I have, and every page could have that photographic background. Or I might choose a solid color. For example, you might be creating a brochure, and that brochure basically is a very light, you're going to print it onto a light yellow paper. Now notice how every page here has the bright yellow page paper, as you can see. Now remember, I turned off multiple facing pages. That's why it's one page being displayed at the time now. Here's the thing. So I do my design, I lay it up on the yellow background, and if I go back in here, I can choose, based here, whether I'm going to print that background or, without printing it, really what I'm doing is I'm just seeing what that print is going to look like on yellow coloured paper. And that can be really handy, particularly, you don't want to spend a lot of money, so you're using coloured paper to help create the effect that you're looking for. If you want to print it, just make sure that option is turned on. And finally, the one that you'll mostly work with, no background at all. So click OK, and that's all we're going to look at for page setup, and that's probably enough. So go ahead, create a brand new document, play around with some of this. I recommend that you actually try and put an image in the background, create some facing pages, and so on, and we'll move on to our next lesson.